Over the past couple of years, Russia has been getting closer and closer to our other enemies. Now, this is something that we don't want. This is something that behind the scenes, American politicians have been trying to, this is something they've been trying to prevent from happening for years. But now, Russia and China, they're getting really close. And Russia and North Korea have now formed this new relationship as well. And this relationship is dangerous for so many reasons. For one, obviously, you don't want your enemies teaming up and getting all buddy-buddy. But what's happening here is they have a mutual relationship that is benefiting them economically as well. You see, now North Korea is helping to supply Russia with certain ammunitions, tanks, military equipment, and in turn, obviously, this is boosting the North Korean economy. And this is something that could have been prevented from happening. This is something that should have been prevented from happening. But now, as I've explained to you all in past videos, a line is being drawn in the sand. We're now seeing who the alliance is going to be that will go up against NATO. Now, you may think that NATO is ready for this. Personally, I'm not convinced. I am not convinced with the way things are going on in the West. Everyone seems soft these days. Everyone's offended by everything. The military is walking around here in heels. We got drag queens for generals. And we're going up against hardened countries. Okay? We're going to send our young kids to fight some kids that never lived the privileged life that our kids have lived. No, they've been trained for this from day one. And I do think things will get ugly. A lot of people think, oh, you're just going to press a couple of buttons and nukes and bombs are going to fly. That's not necessarily how things are going to work. You think that ground wars can't still happen? Look at what's happening in Ukraine. Look at what's happening in Gaza. So if you think for 1 second that our government is beyond putting troops on the ground somewhere and sending them into the meat grinder, then you are sadly mistaken, folks. But let's go ahead and roll this clip because Putin is about to go meet up with the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, and they're just going to get closer and closer. But let's roll this clip, and then I'll be right back with more thoughts.
Back. For the first time in 24 years, a Russian leader is set to visit North Korea. That's starting tomorrow. There was a lot of speculation about a possible trip by Vladimir Putin after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited Russia last September. Russia says the two countries may sign a partnership agreement that would include security issues, but they assure us would not be directed against other countries. Okay, so joining us now to discuss the importance of this visit is retired Army General Wesley Clark. He is the former NATO Supreme Allied Commander. General Clark, thanks for joining us very much. So what are these two leaders up to? I mean, Kim Jong-un has an arsenal at his disposal, not only nuclear weapons, but is supplying Russia with much-needed artillery and other battlefield weapons as it brings the war to Ukraine.
That's right. You said it. He's providing munitions. He's providing artillery, apparently some tanks. And so I'm sure the meeting is about how can Putin get more of it and what's it going to cost him. And he's got plenty of technology to give. And he's got plenty of international support to give to Kim Jong-un. And Kim Jong-un has a pretty robust armaments industry. Makes his own artillery, got some long-range artillery, the so-called Koksan guns. He's got a lot that he could offer Putin in sort of basic military stuff.
Okay, and so what does Vladimir Putin have to give him in exchange? I guess money's the obvious answer, but what's the advantage for Kim Jong-un to take Putin's side in this war that he's prosecuting in Ukraine?
You always need more military technology. Things like night vision, electronic warfare, maybe some more modern aircraft, some training systems, some sniper rifles, and some things as drones. giving the North Koreans some insight into what the battlefield is like. You bring some intelligence people in, you mix them in with the units, maybe even some soldiers from North Korea, and let them learn some lessons, because the North Korean army hasn't fought in 70 years. So they might, Kim might think that it's a good thing to get some of the soldiers out there, get their hands dirty, see some real combat.
Okay, so the United States has just given Ukraine $60 billion. But on the other side of the world, there are, what, 35,000 U.S. troops stationed in South Korea along the demilitarized zone outside of Panmunjom. This strengthens this trade, and this alliance between Putin and Kim Jong-un strengthens North Korea. What should and can the United States be doing to try to break this link?
That's a good question, but there are some things you just don't break easily, and this is one of them. In fact, it's actually working the other way, because North Korea has been under a bunch of sanctions and restrictions. And for a while, Russia was supporting things like what was called the Missile Technology Control Regime, which was inhibiting the transfer of ballistic technology to and from North Korea. Russia sort of moved away from supporting any of that. They're not supporting us at the UN. And so Russia is bit by bit forming a bloc of nations that will work with Russia and cooperate against the United States.
Well, that's scary. Final question, and this is a little bit of a change of subject. The Biden administration is trying to get Wall Street journalist Evan Gershkovich out of jail. He's got a hearing starting this week in just a couple of days. It's, for all intents and purposes, the start of his trial. What should the Biden administration be doing? What leverage do they have to try to get him out of Russia before this farce continues?
You know, it's a real trade-off. I mean, obviously, the administration is going to say they're going to do everything possible, but we're just taking $50 billion of Russian earnings. We put new sanctions on Russian trading and so forth. And you have to decide sort of which way you come down on foreign policy. If you really believe Russia's the aggressive nation that they are, they invaded Ukraine unprovoked, then you have to ask yourself, what can you reasonably give that doesn't compromise your principles and your major foreign policy objectives? Mr. Gershkovich, I mean, it's a terrible thing. It's a dilemma that Russia has played with. Obviously, he's done nothing wrong. He's not a spy. This is just an effort to get Mr. Biden and the administration to compromise on the hard line they've taken.
All right. Four-star General Wesley Clark, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, sir.
So you see, our enemies are coming together as we speak. You know, obviously we have problems with Russia and Ukraine, and we're afraid supposedly that Russia may make a move into Europe. Then, of course, we have China. We're afraid that China is going to make a move on Taiwan. And then that may lead to a move on the Philippines or other small islands, possibly even Japan. And then, of course, we got all of the tension that's been going on between South Korea and North Korea. And now North Korea is all buddy-buddy with Russia. Russia's all buddy-buddy with China. Russia is also getting really close to Egypt, which is right there next to Israel. So it's obvious what's happening here. There's relationships, you know, and friendships and bonds being made for a reason. And it's not like they sit down on the news and tell you what's really happening, but this is what's really happening. This is why I say a line has been drawn in the sand. We're clearly seeing what sides, you know, we're starting to see who the enemy, and when I say enemy, who our enemies are going to be. We're starting to see who's going to be on the opposing side. And it's a formidable force, you know. You think about how bad World War II was, going up against Germany and Japan. And now think about this, going up against North Korea, going up against China, Russia. And there's going to be so many different fronts all across the world. That's hard to keep up with. And America is already draining all of our resources, sending all of our military equipment and money to all of these other countries. So who knows what's going to happen next, folks. But things are heating up. And these little meetings and stuff, they're being had for a reason, okay? People are no longer playing. And when Russia sent that nuclear sub and those ships right off the coast of Florida, they're like a couple of 100 miles away from where I'm at right now, they're sending a message. But for now, let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all soon in the next one.